Hi there, I'm going to be doing a review on the 50mm 1.8 and the 50mm 1.4. So here on your left, my right, is the 51.8 and this is a 1.4. So there are some key differences between these two lenses, and I'm going to help you to determine the differences so that you can figure out which lens is best suited to your application. So first thing, the 1.8, the build quality is very cheap and tacky. You can probably hear just how cheap that plastic is. Whereas a 1.4, it's made out of a much sturdier plastic. And two other physical features that are different is the 1.8 just has this little focus ring on the end here, also made out of very cheap tacky plastic, and it has no focus scale, whereas this one has a nice rubber ring that you can actually keep on going past its focusing distance. See, there's no way, here, I'll get that in focus. There we go. So there's no way that you can damage the motor, because as soon as you start rotating it past its focusing distances, it basically just continues to rotate, and there's kind of a, you can feel a bit of a stop, but it's not doing any damage to the lens itself. And another benefit of the scale is if you're doing video or photography, you can use this as like a rough estimate for how far away your subject is. So if you're taking video and your LCD is say being like reflected by the sun and you can't quite see it, or you want to hold your camera down lower, you can basically just set it to a high aperture and then set the distance to roughly what you think it might be, and it'll be in focus. So that's a really big benefit. However, one thing with the focus ring is the actual travel of it. There's quite a bit of it, so unless you have a follow focus, it's kind of an annoyance to try and find focus, especially at smaller apertures, typically below like 2.8. It's pretty difficult to get a moving subject in focus. However, if you're set up on a tripod, it's actually quite nice. So I think I'll cut to some footage of the 1.8 and 1.4, and then you can get a feel for what it looks like in video. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention that's pretty obvious is because of these 50mm lenses having very large apertures, you can obviously use lower ISOs. So that's going to mean that you have better image quality, basically less noise and graininess in your image, and it's going to allow you to have that shallow depth of field, which is present with this lens that I have on now. And I'm using the 1.8, so I'll do like a little example of how shallow the depth of field is at 1.8. So yeah, that's the 1.8. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but the 1.8 is super light. I just noticed that when I was putting it on the camera, and which is a benefit if you have to pack light and you want a lens that'll give you a little bit of everything. Okay, so now I'm using the Canon 50mm 1.4. You might be able to see a little bit of a difference in the image quality, the sharpness, but it's kind of unlikely. The background is probably more blurred out than the last clip. Yeah, I guess I'll just do a little test of depth of field. So one thing that I do really like about this lens when taking stills is the ultrasonic motor. So it basically it focuses much faster than the 1.8, and it doesn't sound like R2-D2 having a hissy fit. The 1.8, it really has difficulty finding focus in low light, which is typically what you want one of these lenses to do, right? So it can be quite annoying if you're using autofocus to take stills in low light. Whereas the 1.4, it's much more quiet. It's really easy to use. So I think in conclusion, if I was taking video, I would probably stick to the 1.8 just because it's much easier to focus. You're not going to notice the difference too much. It's way cheaper, it's lighter, and if for whatever reason you damage it, it's not such a big deal. For stills, I think I would stick with 1.4 though, just because the image quality, you're probably going to notice that more. And the ultrasonic motor just helps out so much. I think that's about it. Yeah, I hope you found this useful. If you do, make sure you like it and subscribe. Thanks.